Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to a podcast with John and myself. This is going to be some fun stuff. We're going to be discussing multiple topics. So if you can get right into it, here you go. John, go ahead and what you been up to, man?
I've been good. I just started my management probation, so I have four people reporting to me now, four juniors. So that's a lot. And then I just got put onto a long-term client like contract. So it's like, they have their own special stuff on reporting separate from the rest of the organization and stuff. So it's heavy. Prior to that, I've done a bunch of thick clients and like Windows software tests. So that's always very different. Everyone is a lot different, but just real quick, one of the most interesting thing I think I found since the last time we talked was in this one thick client, it turned out it had prod data, and then the prod data was like these servers you could access that username and password, and it was hidden, but using like WinSpy, right, you can select that, and it turned out it wasn't hidden. It was just like set to display asterisk, right? But when you viewed that actual element, it was not hidden. So that was pretty cool. What's going on your end?
Yeah, that's pretty fun stuff. That's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, my end, there's a few things I've got into the last couple of weeks, and yeah, did some vulnerability assessments, some minor pen testing stuff, some blue teaming stuff as well. Getting into some stuff with Splunk, evaluating some different SIM solutions from Microsoft Sentinel to that's pretty much it. We're using Splunk at a client right now. So that's some fun stuff. So I've been doing probably the last couple months some blue teaming stuff. So that's always fun. I'm not sure when, but I'll probably be getting into some forensic stuff that there's a client that has some stuff going on and they have to, dig into using an application called InCase
I know
for litigation stuff. So, and then there's forensics toolkit at FTK or
FTK. Yeah, it's funny. My first degree was criminal justice cybersecurity, so I touched all those stuff. I even have a way cooler one that's discontinued. I can send you the installer after this call if you want. But yeah, I've used all of those. That's cool. That's cool stuff. I mean, it's tedious, but that's fun.
Yeah, it is tedious. Getting into some of the Microsoft stuff. Spam filter, not spam, like digging into email security, Cisco EAS. What else? So many other cool things that are coming up, coming down the pipeline. And getting into some Cortex, EDR, XDR from Palo Alto. And locally on my network and what I'm going to be using pretty much for my family, I guess, because I was using TeamViewer, to help family back home in New York, my uncle down here. And it's a pain in the butt, because it's like, hey, let me, unless you do an unintended install, right? And then you can, log in whenever. But now I'm using Komodo. I did a little video on their free EDR, and I didn't really go too deep, but offline, I actually got in and I, used the zoo. There's some malware out there on GitHub. And just, if you want to learn about some malware stuff. And I put some on a sandbox box with my EDR client and I executed it. And just one thing for the viewers or whoever, because I had a question, someone was running CrowdStrike on their endpoint and malware was living there for, I think, 6 to 8 months. And we found out XDR, EDR, NDR, any of those tools will not catch it unless it's running, right? So that's, I think folks don't get that. Like, oh, why didn't this, F CrowdStrike, F, 365 Defender and all these XDR and, they're bashing them because they didn't find it. But if it's not running, it's hidden, right? Just want to put that out there because I had someone reach out asking, we got hacked and we didn't see it for 6 months and it was living, blah, blah, blah. But that's the reason, But yeah, pretty much some fun stuff going on my end.
I mean,
I'm
that's the
studying
big
for some certs,
difference.
but we'll get into that.
It's the big difference between like, runtime and like, scan time antivirus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've even found like I've been on engagements with like Carbon Black, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they only like flag like, for example, PowerShell.exe, not PowerShell ISE, right? So I can
Mm-hmm.
open that and execute it like that, living off the land, which is always the
Exactly.
most ideal way to do it. So yeah, so that's cool. I think this is a brings me to one of the notes we'll get to, but let's jump into some podcast stuff, right? Our plans moving forward. I think it'd be cool for us to live do this together. I mean, we'll have to
Mm-hmm.
do some stuff, schedule time after hours, but I think it'd be a cool experience to kind of bring the viewers along, right? The listeners along. So um, I'm going to set a timer so that we don't go too long, and we'll figure out the rest after hours. But I think the first thing we can discuss about this is the length. Um, you know, some podcasts are like straight an hour, some go X or Y, right? Some go 3 hours. What are your thoughts on
I
this?
think an hour, due to the time difference, I don't want to kill you. I think an hour would be doable around this time, 6 to 7. I think that'll, six to seven EST for those folks that are watching and going forward. And then maybe we can do maybe a weekend. We can also do a Saturday, maybe 11 my time and, whatever time it is over you, that's your time. Um, or even 10 my time and then whatever your time. So we
Yeah,
can we can do some stuff like that. Because I don't want to kill your middle of the day.
yeah. I mean, I think an hour. I mean, it's hard. We both like to talk. I think maybe an hour, pushing an hour and a half, right? And if it ends in an hour, that's fine. And if we just maybe split it up so that we do like half the episode is released, the other half is released. You know what I mean? We can do it
Hmm.
like that. I think if we do 2 days, which I'm totally down, I think we should kind of split it, maybe like a entry or like people interested in cybersecurity or in the field of cybersecurity, and then one that's more like technical, where we do like techniques, lectures we talk about, stuff like that. Maybe
Hmm.
share a screen once in a while, whereas like
Yeah.
the first day is just like, let's talk about the latest and greatest, let's talk about what's going on with us, talk about what's going on in the industry. I think
Hmm.
that could be a good fix, but we can tentatively do like just like an hour twice a week. That's definitely cool. Um, More importantly, though, ideally, right? I think it's important that we set up, get a name, set up a domain, some email and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, I know we brainstormed. I sent you a bunch. To be honest, I can't find them. I have a few listed, like the P&J show. I think more than the name, we don't have to do this, live in the podcast. But I think more importantly is kind of what path we're looking for, right? I mean, for example, your YouTube channel, InfoSec Pat, right? This is like you're a mentor, a tutor, right? You're meant
Hmm.
to teach them things to get them in. Is that the path we're going to take? Are we just, talking with other people that are like us, right? Are we talking to the layman, as they say in the industry, right? Like, which path we want to take? Because
I think
yeah,
mixing it up will be cool. Maybe sometimes we can do, like you said, a live screen share, maybe a hack the box lecture or a Vuln hub, or maybe setting up, offline, doing a lab in my house, and then we can, attack, do some Active Directory attacks. That's the big booming thing. And then you can demonstrate some web application attacks. Um, and stuff like that. And then also, get into, bringing other folks on. I think mixing it up, I think will be a little more engaging instead of like, okay, it's repetitive. Okay, like it's the latest and greatest news on, bleeping computer, and this is the latest hack and all this good stuff, which is obviously awesome and it's informative for the folks. But I think like having them engaged, and I found that even though when I went live doing my, try hack me stuff, and then you can engage like, oh man, I'm stuck, or oh man, like which way would you go to compromise this? What attack vector would you take, etc. So I think doing that will be ideal.
Yeah, and so when you think of names, right? I mean, we have like the Cyber Synapse podcast, Cyber Tales, Cybersecurity Today, CyberWire Daily, Hack the Planet, Hacked Off, Darknet Diaries, Steal This Show, Cybersecurity Interviews, Cyber, and it's like, you know, I don't want to shoo us into, the cyber, you know what I mean? I think that's unnecessary, and will detract a lot. Something like Dark Knight Diaries, like that's, specific enough that you'll get the right people, and also not specific enough that you'll get the people that maybe don't know that they're interested. But if it was like the cyber dark, tour podcast, right? Like no one's going to listen to that unless you're like super into it. So I think that's something we need to like figure out on the back end, just the two of us, and like,
Hmm.
move in. Is it like learn sec, right? I'm a big fan of the sec,
Yeah.
GainSec, learn sec, teach sec, whatever. It doesn't have to be like that, but um, you know, that just is, something that comes to mind is I don't want us to be like the, cyber show, you know what I mean? The hacker, daily. Like I think that's not good.
Yeah, exactly. No, no, I agree. I agree. And we could definitely come up with something, like you said, offline. I think even like P&J sec, like or something that's associated,
Peanut butter and jelly.
peanut butter and jelly. And so I think those, that'll be a good start. But I think but I like that, like just, not honing in, not so like, okay, cyber, 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 because, security can be physical security. We can talk about locking picks or this little guy here that I brought in and I did some fun stuff
Oh,
with.
there you go. Flipper Zero, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
privacy. I love privacy. It's like psychology goes along with that physical stuff, right? Social
mhm.
engineering and all that stuff. And it's just again, like, I don't want this to be, if you're not technical, you can't enjoy it. Um,
Exactly.
and the
Exactly.
name is the first thing to stop that. So I hope that, assuming let's say we do this every week or every other week, I hope maybe in a week or two we'll have like a real name set. We'll have our domain set up, and I mean, I don't know how you want to approach it, but I think a separate channel, a separate, we can get whatever it's called to get all the, get it out to all the podcast platforms immediately. We'll
Hmm.
definitely pursue that in the back end, and maybe we'll do like one or two more on your channel, and then kind of like, okay, here's the new thing,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be good.
and then it
And
could
if
just be
you,
sponsored by InfoSec. But
yeah, and then yeah, and then obviously if you can run that channel or like have that like hosted, whatever, that'll, and then if we,
yeah, I think what we could do is we'll use Bitwarden or something, right? So we can share passwords to these
exactly.
accounts, and then it's like something like simple login, right, where it goes to that one domain and it goes out to both of us
Hmm.
itself, and then as it picks up, then we can get like a G Suite or something like that where we have our own like real email. But for now, I don't think that's necessary. Not that
No,
it's very
exactly.
expensive, but why do that? Cool.
Yeah,
Okay, so I
exactly.
mean that's the time for that. I don't think we need to live go over much more. And I want to save time for this big section. I think there's going to be a lot for both of us to say about this. And so, as an introduction, I'm doing a lecture on Monday, and it's about CVEs versus academic degrees versus experience versus certifications.
Hmm.
And my mindset behind this was, this is like a really hot industry right now, this offensive stuff. I've been in it for a minute, so I have my own opinions. But what does my boss think, and what does my boss's boss think, and what does someone under me think, right? So I interviewed two directors, and a senior managing consultant. I gave them, I think, about 20 questions, and
Hmm.
I've got their answers. And so I figure what I'll do is I'll go through a few interesting ones. I'll say, here's the question, here's the answer from each of these people, and then I'll pass it to you. You discuss your thoughts, and then I'll discuss my thoughts. How does that work?
No, that's sweet. Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So then let's start with the senior. So the lowest level person I talked to, right? And I asked, I'll go through 4 questions and then we'll respond because they're pretty short. What is your perspective on academic degrees? Um, he said it gets you through the HR door, so it's a great entry level. Computer science degrees are definitely more valuable than most of the other ones. He's not really sure on cybersecurity degrees as this was before his time, but if it was available, he would have done it. The director, so one of the directors, right, when asked the same question, he said, a degree in computer science again is helpful, but not a requirement. If it's a relevant major, it's a little bit more helpful, as in like computer sciences, right? So he's not completely disregarding cyber like the last guy, but it's a good addition. It's not a good single, qualification.
Mm-hmm.
We go to the next director. He said he's pro education overall, so that's important. He needed to just make that clear. It's a right path for a lot of people, which I can see as, and I'll get to that. It helps get through the HR filters, and it's more helpful in your early career, right, to get started. And then the last person I interviewed is a senior managing consultant, and his perspective is cybersecurity degrees are not useful. Computer science is a little useful, and then computer IT is a little useful. So, what do you think? What do you think of their answers, Pat?
Yeah. So if I was to answer that, I think if I was to go back, I think I probably said this multiple times, but I had a scholarship. I could a sports scholarship from bowling. So if I don't think I would have went to college if I didn't have that. Probably the biggest reason is because I'm against debt. A little bit about how I think. If I can't buy it twice, I can't afford it. So that's always my mentality. That's why I live debt free. I have zero debt. Um, and that's one thing, how I live. So like if I was getting tuition paid for, even today, like if I was 18, 19, 20 again and living this all over, and I would have been like, if I'm not going to go to school when I can go get a certification in 4 to 6 months that I can study and learn more than I did in my 6.5 years of college, which is my undergrad and grad school. So I'm not against, degrees. Obviously, if you're going to be a shrink, if you're going to be a doctor, and even an attorney. If I have two friends that's super smart that didn't even go to law school, they just passed the bar because they said it's a waste of time to study all this time. And so I guess that's my take. I think certifications are definitely a good weight as well. Same thing like with discipline, because a degree just says I
Wait,
went to
wait for
school.
certifications. We're getting to that. That's the next
Yeah.
question. So this is just degrees.
Yeah. So I think overall it's good to have because it just says, you have discipline to complete something. And at the, you started something and you completed something. So to an employee, okay, they gave themselves 4 to 6 years. They dedicated themselves. Okay, they may be a valid and loyal employee because they have that discipline of doing this for so long without giving up. So,
Okay, my turn.
yep, your turn. Pass the
Uh,
baton.
sure. So, um, I think it's definitely a good HR filter. Like there's certain organizations that you just, it's either going to be a 4-year degree or a 12-year experience. I've seen that many times. So, that is that BS? I think it is, but that's the way it is. I think it's important to remember that this industry was founded and like built on high school dropouts and criminals.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, criminals not like, evil people, but more curiosity, and if you want a gray hat type of thing. So I think that's
Hmm.
important to note. I think if you have the opportunity to be spoon fed, which I believe is what a degree is, that's a great path for you, right? The other ones we'll talk about, like they're not the same. You're not going to get spoon fed the same, right? So I think if the opportunity there is fine, like of course it doesn't hurt. I just, think it needs to be known that, whether it's degree or any of the other ones we're going to talk about, like that nothing is going to guarantee, nothing's going to get you past something, which we'll talk about at the end. But so yeah, so I mean, I think that's all helpful. I think it's a yin and yang. Computer science, right? Learning to code is, learning how to find, source code review, right? It's the same difference. So, but yeah, I don't regret it. I think with degrees, the biggest thing you can do is make the connections, if no one else, then with your professors. I think you go to college not for, for the paper, sure, to get past HR, but most importantly is to leverage and like, do what you can to get close to your either classmates or your professors, right? And that goes a lot further
Hmm.
than, because everyone in college is going to college, right? But not everyone's going to be the teacher's pet. And I think that,
Exactly. Fair enough.
yeah. Okay. So I'm going to actually start now for the next one. This is about certifications, their perspectives on certifications, but I'm going to start with the junior guy first and go in seniority. So it makes a little bit more sense. So the senior consultant said, certs are better than degrees, but some are better than others. Some are better to get through like HR, like the CEH, but it's crap.
Hmm.
He also really doesn't like SANS. It's like overpriced and not good for competency, but it's a common one that employers pay for. If I go to the senior managing consultants, he said it's great for entry level stuff. It's great for going into a new field or, and this is important, specialized area within the field. And that's something we could touch on, but that was an interesting point he made. The first director said it helps getting through the HR filters. It's more helpful in your early career. You sign up for a cert with a plan to learn, so don't just like sign up and forget about it. Otherwise, it's completely useless. Don't always get them to prove what you know. It's better to to learn with them, which I thought was an interesting point. And then ultimately, which I'll talk about in my lecture, the certs and degrees and everything that these guys have, or these people have, they keep each other active, right? So that's kind of what I ended up having with him is he, got more because he needed CVs to continue to keep this one active, and then it like kind of snowballed. And it's a decent way to learn. And the last director, he said it's nice to have, it's not a need, and then some certs are better than the other, and then others. So, what do you think?
Yeah. So I guess we can start when I started, right? Um, so when we're talking about certs, folks, like this can mean anything: Cisco, Microsoft, VMware, OffSec, PNPT, SANS, whatever. And I think, for an example, Cisco, right? I believe those certifications, like say, for example, you have a CCNA, CCNP, or CCIE, that's going to show that you know this topic better than if you went to go get your Security Plus, CEH, and maybe GPEN, since it's still a multiple choice question, right? Because both of them are still multiple choice, not the CCIE, but CCNA, CCNP. But this shows you, at least from my experience, because I have CCNP and I have, CEH and all that shiznit. And I believe I learned more and it was more, I can apply more with my Cisco, right? Um, the CEH, yeah, it is crap. It just gives you tools that you're never going to use. Like I learned a lot of tools and I probably used three of them, and Matt being one of them. It's just like, so, and then going into like the Microsoft world, because search for me, a thing about what I did in my career was if I'm learning something, or learning a new topic, when I learned Exchange Server, Office 365, VMware, and it's going back to, I'll use this analogy: going to law school without going to pass the bar, or going to med school without going to do your board. There's no point. So that's the way I thought about a lot of my certs, and that's why I do have quite a bit. Like I have SonicWall, I have WatchGuard, I have Palo Alto, I have a lot of firewall because I was learning that during my time at a certain company, and I'm going balls deep into this topic and configuring it. Why not be reinforced for what I'm learning? So just for me, it's not for you, it's not for my employee, it's just for my own sake, right? So that's more why I did over 100 exams. And this is why I did all the certifications I did, was because I'm learning a topic and I wanted to prove to myself that I really knew it. And that's, we'll get into maybe one day, like why I made my YouTube channel, like to deliver that content, to make it accessible. That's why I'm doing some checkpoint stuff now, and a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, that's my take on certifications. It's just like, for a job, I think it's good to have. Now we'll transfer to the cyber side. Yes, I do talk a lot. So that's exactly what John said in the beginning. So we go to like the cyber side. I do have, CEH, LPT, ECSA. We're talking about some forensic stuff from the Certified Hacking Forensics Investigator, blah, 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 and OffSec stuff. And I want to do PNPT and I want to do other stuff. But I think having those certifications is just like you said, like a gateway into a place.
I didn't say anything. This was remember the
Yeah,
directors,
I'm saying,
everyone I
like, this is
interviewed.
what people say, right? This is what people say. Because when I had my CEH, just the CEH, before I even got the ECSA or LPT from EC Console, I didn't know shiznit. I didn't know anything, and that's what I was like, man, like I have this certification, and like I wasn't even getting interviews for like offensive security, and I was like, man, I got this CEH, like this is the top notch certification. I'm a certified ethical hacker, and I'm not even getting any calls. And that's what, like, people was, obviously EC Console probably thought about that, and that's why they created the master, and that's what, like, equivalents of maybe the EJPT. I don't want to say the OSCP, but like the EJPT, to get more hands-on. They're gonna stick you in a lab, then they're gonna have you crack a couple things, and try to and just capture the flag. And then really when you have to write the report, that's more for like the LPT, licensed penetration tester. But yeah, that's my take on certs.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing I gathered is like as you were doing things in your career, you took it as an opportunity to say, what cert can I get to prove that I had or have this knowledge, right? Or that I was capable, right? So that if something changes, I get a new job, right? I can still look back at that with proof, right? And say, here, look, you know what I mean? I knew what I was talking about. And then on top of it, the little bits that maybe, you don't touch, but are still part of, like, let's say, Cisco, right? Now you get exposed to that as well, right? That's kind of what I was gathering from what you're saying. Is that
Exactly. Absolutely right. And I think gathering those experiences over the years, that makes you even a better, if you want to call it, pen tester, offensive guy, even on the defensive stuff, right? Because if you're looking at, stuff on local Windows stuff, having the MCITP and having some other certifications from Microsoft really helps, and just tells me that I can actually perform this tack as a defensive tactic because I understand how Windows works. And I think that definitely helped me out a lot.
absolutely? Yeah. And as someone with one certification, the Security Plus, which is expired as of like 5 years ago, probably, um, you know, my perspective on them is similar to degrees, where if you don't have an option, right? If you can't learn on the job, that is, it is often the next best thing. If paying for something means you're going to commit to it, then do it, right? If having a structure is going, having a test, if that's right, what it means. To me, I think it's less important often to get the certification, but that depends, than it is to just go through the training completely, have the book, and like have that as a resource and a reference point, right? A big thing, which if you watch my lecture next week, that I talk about is, the difference between answering and giving examples. And that's, I think, where these technical hands-on certs really help. Like if you are trying to be an entry level, web app tester, right? And they say, what's XSS? You can explain the three types and blah, 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 right? Or you can say, these are the three types and here's here's an instance of each time I've found them. And that's not from a non-prod or an engagement, right, from doing it, because you're entry level, it's way better. And when you get to a point as a senior, as a principal, as a, when you get past the consultant 1 or 2, right, these entry level or these junior or regular titles, that's expected. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to say, they're not going to say, what's an SQL injection? And you're going to say, well, that's what you blindly put in user input to a SQL query, right? They're going to expect you to say, that's what it is, and here's an example of how I did it, or here's an
Mm-hmm.
example of an instance I did it, and it's not, here's the exact payload, right? I mean, that's not necessary, but I think that's the most important part. But one thing to note is that no cert is a guarantee, as you said, right? Just because I got this, I thought I could get in. That's not how it works. Even where I'm at, and that's why every org I've been to, which is something else I talk about, and we won't touch on today. Maybe next time, or you could watch a lecture where you're treated equally. They're not going to say, "Oh shit, you have this. We don't need to ask you questions." So
Mm-hmm.
that's something important to note. So since we're running out of time, let me pick 1 or 2 more. Let's see. So let's do 2 more. What's your perspective, let's start with the senior consultant, right? What's his perspective on professional experience in regards to like help desk or full stack dev or web dev, right? These jobs that are not offensive, but can correlate to it, right? Can get your foot in the industry, can get you a tech job, basically, is the question, right? So he said, it's useful being on the other side. It builds, connection. Like if you build blocks for a living, it makes you good at breaking them. That's,
Mm-hmm.
you've already reiterated that. I think that's a pretty common perspective. The senior managing consultant said, nothing beats experience. Others teach theory. Hands-on is better. And
Mm-hmm.
a yin and yang mindset, which I also agree, right? The blue and the red is a yin and yang. They go together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where my camera is. The first director said it's a really helpful way to start, but it's not necessary. And the connections you make with people who've gone down the same road might come back really fruitful in the future, right? So a lot of people start at help desk, and then you don't know where they end up, so that could come back, to be nice and connect with them. And then coding and developing is like super helpful, if that's the entry that you're taking. And then the last director said, it's very helpful in soft skills, which is something I think
Mm-hmm.
that's very underrated, especially in offensive work, because we're all like weird and want to be in our, on the computers and not talk. It's helpful in how orgs work, which I think is also important, right? Especially with like my job, I jump from, Fortune 10, whatever, every week, every month, right? I change a lot. So it's important to know kind of those internals, and then, troubleshooting, and then reiterated the same yin and yang mindset. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's very valid. And I think starting out as a help desk, sysadmin, network admin, and all that good stuff is definitely ideal. It'll make you that much better, from a defensive side, like you said, build a lock and I can break it. And because I'm the one that put all the mechanisms in place, I know when I turn that key, how it actually works, what clicks, what doesn't. And then same thing on the offensive side. Okay, now I understand, you know, how this system is built and all that stuff because I came from that system administration. I built that Active Directory. I understood, how networks traverse data. I know what a VLAN is. So, like maybe I can use some tactics of VLAN hopping. Maybe someone that, like you were saying, goes from the coding, goes from the, the application side. And then if they put inside of an internal assessment, if they never touch what is a VLAN at layer 2, understand, how those things work, it may be a little more complicated to complete a task like that, and vice versa, right? If I have to do a code review, I'm lost, right? Because I didn't come from that, like I didn't come from that world to transfer to the offensive side. That's why like infrastructure and networking is a lot easier, that comes to me versus, if I have to do something on a web or like do something with Burp Suite, and it's still foreign to me. I'm going to be honest, still today, like, and you've been bothering me for almost 2 years. And
Yeah.
it's just like, when I open it, it's just like, man, I'm lost. I just get so lost. And it's like, and I don't know if anyone else feels that way with a topic that they're not comfortable with, like,
Of course. Of course. Of course.
so
I
it's like,
mean,
okay, here's vSphere. Here's how to, set up this, that, and the other. And then you're like, I
yeah,
never set up this in my life. All I did is
sure.
VirtualBox and VMware Workstation. How does this, what's a data store? How does these data stores connect to fiber ether, ether channel and blah, blah, blah. I don't understand any of this stuff. But it's like, I'll just X out of it and open up my Burp Suite, because that's where your bread and butter is. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I hear you. I get it. I'll keep it very, very short and sweet. We talked about degree, talked about certs. There's a few other ones I'll talk about in my lecture, but if paying to learn is not what you want to do, but being paid to learn is, then do it, right?
Yep.
Sometimes that's all you need. I mean, you're going to start at the bottom, but that doesn't mean it can't build up. So, and I think that's a realistic mindset, right? Most people are like, this is interesting, but I'm not going to get off my lazy ass. If that's your attitude, then starting in help desk, starting in something that's related, but not this in direct offensively, like perfect. That's perfect. So that's really how I feel about it. There's nothing, obviously, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So last question I want to go over. Well, actually, we started a few minutes late, right? When are we
Yeah,
when are we done?
you can keep going. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to this one next. This is interesting. This one's interesting. I asked two questions, and I'll go over both because they're very related. I asked them all, do you think that your certifications, degrees, all this stuff helped? CVEs, which we didn't talk about, but all this stuff helped. And then I said, do you think that it helped? So did it help, or do you think that it helped? These are two separate questions. One is direct, right? You got this job just because of this. You got a promotion just because of this. Or, this I think helped because I could like rely on this knowledge, right? I think this is a very interesting point. So if I start at the senior, when I said, do you think that it helped? He said, yeah, yes, 100%. Didn't go further than that. That's it, right? If I go to the senior managing consultant, he said yes with an asterisk. It depends on the certification. So like his college degree helped with being a manager. His CEH was garbage and his Security Plus was garbage, but a lot of his certifications were requirements because he started in the Army, which I go over their background in the lecture and stuff. The first director, he said, let's see, what did he say? Do you think that these helped? He said they've come up in some interviews, maybe with like some financial institutions or these larger organizations again that are kind of just like trying to check the box, right? Do you have this? And the last director, do you think, he said having a background in computer science definitely did help. The how it built, it made it easier to break it. So before you answer your perspective, that's, do you think that it helped, right? Now let's go over the concrete. Did it actually help, right? Like, was it like, okay, you get this promotion out because of this, right? I think that's an important distinction to make. So did it actually help?
So yes, having the certifications did help. I think it helped me more growing into the field.
That's
Going.
you're answering, did you think it helped? You just said, I think it helped me growing into the field. Important distinction. Let me explain. Let me explain. The senior, when I said it, did they actually help? Like factually, right? Like proven, like on paper, right? He said, whenever I need to provide an example, I use the OSCP to do it. Right? That's like something you lean to, right? The senior manager, not do you think it helped, but did it help? Like directly. He said, only because I needed to have some degrees or some certs to keep my job in the military. The first director, same answer. Only because I needed to have some degrees or to have some certifications to keep my job in the military. And
Okay.
the last guy said, no, it did not. It helps, but it's not a biggie. That's so now you understand the difference between do you think it helped or did it help, right?
Yes, yes. So yes, for an example, like yes, it did help me get promotions when I got, when I was just a network technician, and then when I got CCNP, now I can go touch routing and switching, real routing and switching, BGP, EIGRP, using these kind of things, routing protocols, and really get into the meat and potatoes. Because at a CCNA level, CCENT at that point, you weren't touching that. All you were doing is at the access layer. There's three layers: there's access layer, distribution, and then core. And then so even at the distribution layer, when we route traffic to the core, they won't even let us, unless you're a CCNP. So yes, it did. Same thing with the VCP. All we were doing was setting up adding VMs. We weren't touching data stores. We weren't touching the SANs, understanding any of the backplane of the traversity of the data between our SAN and our VMware. If you don't have a VCP, you're not touching that. So yes. And then in the cyber stuff, I really don't know. I think just because of my experience coming into cyber, I think that really helped me more than having, the certifications. I think the certifications came as as it just, as I started getting more hands into the actual hacking world. Right. But yeah.
And what about like your opinion? Like, do you think they helped? Right, those were instances where they did help, like directly. Now, do you think that they helped overall? How do you?
Yes. Yeah. I think they do help. I think they do help for sure. I think it helps having that door open, you know, just because, someone has, you know, I have, for an example, I've interviewed a lot of system engineers growing up, or help desk, or they say they know, Active Directory, or they know Cisco, or, firewalls. But then you ask them a simple question like, you know, I don't know, what is the difference between, you know, a dynamic route and a static route? Or, what is a hello message when I'm sent, something super basic, but they have a CCNA or whatever, and they can't answer it, you know? So yeah, I think it does help, but, I think having that, you know, that, that real world experience, or that demonstration, that's what I really like. But now I can't even say it, that's why I really like it in the cyber world now, because now, even if you're a sysadmin and network admin, you can set up GNS3, EVE-NG, VMware, set up your own home lab. But I didn't do that much when I was getting into it. Like, my home lab was not really anything until I got to the CCNP level, and then I got my switches and routers. But in the cyber world, having that, virtual Vuln Hub, Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, all these other platforms that you
That's
can
another
utilize.
question I get to. So
Yeah. So, yep. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I'll tell you, my first boss in this industry as a consultant, he said, I don't care if you have a degree, I don't care if you have a certification. In fact, I think it's a waste of time. The exception was when we had government contracts and they would pay us more if you had the certification. So then his tune changed, right?
Hmm.
Again, I think I want to jump back to, it's built on, hackers, not on, degrees. So I think that's important to note. Um, did my degrees like directly help? I mean, I think I'm a proof that no, because my direct boss said that cybersecurity degrees are useless, and I'm still going to be a managing consultant. So, I think what matters is whatever gets you in the front door. So if it's the cert or the degree or whatever it is, the personal experience, which we haven't touched on, but like TryHackMe, like CTFs, right? If that's what it is to get you in that, then that's what helps. Has it helped me directly? Like, absolutely not. Even at this place, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you have the OSCP, the OSWE, or the OSGGB. It doesn't matter. You still have to jump through the same hoops to get approved on a service line, and I think that's an important distinction to make. Because it's not a shoe-in. Nothing makes you a shoe-in. It's it's the special sauce. It's adding together. It's the mixture, and however you want to mix it up, whether it be the CTS, whether it be reading books. I mean, it really, it shines through in your interview. Like you're saying, you're going to be asked a question, and if you don't know, you don't know. But if you know, it doesn't matter if you know from reading the OWASP doc or a book or, a cert. It doesn't matter how you know it. It's just important that you know it. So that's kind of how I see about it. Do I think that they helped? I mean, sure, I like the yin and yang principle, right? I am a big proponent of you have to find value in what you've done, in everything, even like broken relationships, even, I don't know, failing at a school, even losing a job or whatever, staying at a job too long and being bitter. Like I'm a big thing that, you have to try to find the benefits, even if it's as, silly as, I know the red flags of the employer now moving forward, right? I mean, that's the easy cop out, but so I'm a big proponent of that. So to us, I would never say that no, the things put effort in have been completely useless. Because I mean, otherwise, I think I need to step back and question why I'm doing them. So okay, cool. So let's jump into the next one. We got a few more minutes. So this is an interesting one. I asked, is it worth getting less than half the market rate to get your foot in the door? So this is in the context of a security consultant as an offensive, a pen tester, however, right? So I asked the senior, and this is also assuming that you can afford it. This isn't, you're going to risk your house, what I mean, and be on the street. This is, maybe it's a little less than you make, maybe it's a little more than you make right now. But, if you Google security consultant, then you see 100,000 and you get a job offering you 50, right? Is it worth taking that? If you get the opportunity. So the senior said, absolutely, but don't do it for more than 2 years. The senior managing consultant said, and his answer is he said, it depends on the person. If you have no experience, the life factors, like I said, you can afford it. So that's fine. If it's more than what you make right now, or if you're accustomed to the lower salary, then yes, in big, bold letters, yes, absolutely. The first director said, he said, only if you're passionate. He gave an interesting quote. He said, the more, or you like something more, the better you are at it. So, and it's also, he said, it's a very good bet on job security, that this industry is, especially the offensive side, right, is always going to be indefinitely lacking people. And it gives you that experience, which overall is the golden ticket, in his opinion. And then the last director said, what did he say? He said that's what he did. If you can afford it, yes. And it's a good, career trajectory. Wow, whatever. It's a good career path.
Yeah, trajectory. Yeah. So that's a good question. I like that, because I get that. I think it all depends. Like, I really think, if you have the financial means, 1,000%. Like, I'll jump ship. Like, say for example, even if you're like a SOC analyst and you're like, okay, I want to become a pen tester, but I've been doing SOC analyst for 3 years and I'm making $80,000 because I'm a senior SOC analyst. But as a junior pen tester, I'm only going to make 65,000 because I never touched the offensive side. If that's what you want to do, if pen testing is your golden ticket, and you can afford to take that 15, 20K, drop, and then in 2-3 years you're making over 100 grand, because then now you can, leave that place, because like I wouldn't stay somewhere more than 2 or 3 years at, if I'm jumping ship just to have that experience. If I'm cutting my salary, 20, 15, 20 grand, I need to make sure I make that up as soon as, especially if you're used to having a lifestyle of, but if you're single, ready to mingle, no kids, no nothing, all day, I'll take that jump. But, you just have to make sure, obviously, financially, it makes sense for you.
Okay. Um, I mean, I got paid less than like a Burger King manager in my first consultant job. So, and I worked 80 hours a week. I went to school full time online. So, do I think it's worth it? Like, yeah, absolutely. I think it is very important to know going in that this is a stepping stone. And I agree, it's only if you can afford it. But I mean, if you're like super hungry and want to live out of your car for, a year, like they do you. But like it is a different story. But I absolutely think it is worth it as long as you don't make it your permanent home. And I think that is a very common thing. It goes along with the imposter syndrome of the industry, where it's like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, they gave me a chance. Oh, I owe them, right? Like they let me, be a pen tester. They let me hack these companies. Like I'm so grateful. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. I think that's an important thing to note about that. But overall, I agree. Like experience is the golden ticket, and you take it where you can get it. Just don't make it your permanent home.
Exactly.
Following that, yeah.
No,
So
no,
let's do
exactly.
Yep.
No, I'm just saying exactly.
So following that, I asked each of them, how long do you think you should stay before leaving? And I only asked the senior managing consultant and directors, right? Because ultimately, a senior consultant isn't involved in hiring in most organizations, right? It's these upper management director level. So the senior managing consultant said 24 months, which is the average, right? As someone who does hire a lot, he said you don't want it to make it look like you're just working for the leverage. So you don't want to make it look like you're just working for the title or for the pay increase just to bounce, right? And if you do leave under that, and like have a good explanation, doesn't mean some crazy story or like there can't be exceptions, right? But try to have some good reason or at least some explanation for it. The first director said 2 years. After that, you're most likely leaving money on the table. Only stay if you think there's growth, especially like towards leadership of the organization. If you're not taking these and just grinding tests, right, just grinding engagements, like that's okay. But then you should definitely look to get more money after 2 years somewhere else, 100%. Which she said, don't put my name in this because that doesn't, keep retention. So I thought that was funny, very sweet. And the last director said 1 to 2 years with an exception or two. Otherwise, hopping is not good.
Yeah. So my take on that, I guess I don't like being comfortable. And that's just something about me. Like I like to be challenged. I like to be like always have something going on, something different. Um, everyone has different financial situations. I have friends that been in the same place for 7 years, and they just get their paycheck, know what they're doing, and go home and just chill, you know, and they're just complacent. I'm not that way. Like I need to be pushed. I need to be challenged. I need to have something different going on. I don't know if it's my ADHD. I don't know if it's just my attention span that I just like get, easily bored or just like want to have a change. But yeah, I think having, I would say 2 to 3 years, and it all depends on where you're at in your career. If you're still in your 20s, early 30s, and you're just trying to still find yourself, yeah, like 2 years and just jump ship because, yeah, you are leaving money on the table. If you're making, for any, let's throw numbers out there, $120,000 at 30 years old, at 32, 33 years old, you're making probably 124,000, 125, because they give you, a good old 2-3 grand in the next couple of years. But instead of saying, okay, I'm going to stay here for 124,000, now I have this, 2 to 3 years more experience. Now I can ask for 140, 150,000 elsewhere. So that's what people mean when they say leave money on the table. That's what that means. So I think, being somewhere 2 to 3 years, but I'm hoping to be where I'm at in the long run. I don't want someone to watch this like, oh, in 2 years this dude's gonna bounce. As long as there's the challenge, as long as there's the work there, as long as there's always change, different projects, different things going on. I just don't want to sit there, look at a SIM tool, or do the same kind of testing or assessments or phishing campaigns and doing all the same thing, even though it is the same thing with different organizations, but it's still like it's different technologies. And that's what I like about like the consulting slash MSP world, because it's like we have that advantage over someone that's, in an organization touching the same Palo Alto every day, the same Cisco switches every day, and they're not exposed to different networks, different technologies. They're just stuck on their own stuff. So being a consulting gives you that exposure as well. So I think that's a benefit.
Yeah, I enjoy that about consulting as well. For me, I don't think you should be loyal to an organization unless they're loyal to you, and that's when it's your own. So if you don't have stock in that organization, you should entertain opportunities. I'm not saying you should actively look or, go to the highest bidder, but you should entertain the options no matter what, whether it's been a month or a year or 2 years. If there's opportunities, like, explore them. I'm not saying, again, you don't have to whore yourself out, but keep your ear to the tracks no matter what. You never know what's out there. You'll be surprised. As someone who has left 2 to 3 years after every job I've had and basically have doubled my salary every time, I can tell you it's very worth it. Again, until you get to a certain point. One thing, though, that I think is a danger of this, that not a lot of people discuss, maybe something we could talk about more in longer form, are these soft skills as a consultant, as the offensive side, right? You can be the most talented hacker ever, right? And you can learn and you can grind and put 80 hours into learning web app testing, right, or internals, right? But if you're not prepared for when a network administrator or a developer pushes back, right? If you're not prepared for all of these cases that come up as a consultant, as doing this work from day to day, and I think that's why it's important that you spend the time. Don't expect to enter the industry as a senior consultant if you've only done dev, right? Because it's being a senior, being a principal, being a managing consultant. These aren't pure technical knowledge. I've done enough engagements where I've gone through the ringer. I've had everything from creds not working to production data to this to that to I can tell people a clear guideline of the ways I fucked up and how they can't, right? I can mentor, I can do this, and that's the important thing. And I think that's missed a lot. People say, look, I have the OSCP, the OSWE, I should be at this level, right? But it's not just the technical stuff, and that's the big thing is and I'm autistic, I think, but non-super autistic people or a people person, right? People who can discuss this, people who can handle these situations, people who have done it. And I think that's why, the 2-year mark is fine. If you're going to go from a security consultant to a senior, I think that's a little fast, but if, that makes sense. But that's only if you, again, have gone through them, have gone on these engagements, have gone on these kickoffs, have gone on these readouts, have gone on these things where it's fucked up, you fucked up, they fucked up, and you've gone through all of these things. And I think that's something that people miss a lot. They say, I've done, I killed it. I found an RCE on every engagement. I mean, it's not a thing, but that's, they say, I'm technical enough, and maybe you're right, but, you are definitely not professional enough. You are definitely not approachable enough. You have not gone through enough. You haven't knocked off something, right? You haven't gone through situations so that I make you a principal, meaning you're specialized in this tiny thing, right? And when they come to you, you're not going to be a dick to them. You know, how many times
Mhm.
did I go through in my early career as a junior, going to a principal saying, can explain this to me, and they say, read the fucking manual. I mean, that's not helpful. And if that's how you're going to be approached, I'm not going to promote you principal, because principal means you're the expert, and that means you can teach it. You can mentor. You know, it's more than just the technical knowledge, it's the people shit. So that's my rant about that. You know, I just think
No,
that's
and
important.
that's definitely informative for sure, because I think the soft skills are a big missing piece of the puzzle, right? Debriefing, you know, conversing a non-technical topic, excuse me, a technical topic to a non-technical topic. And, I had to do that, like I would have to talk to a client, and even if there's CTO up there, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, I use this RCE and I got into this and I use that and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what the hell's an RCE? What is an IOC?
Mm-hmm.
What is all this stuff? Blah, blah, blah. Like they may understand. I don't even know, because I've had people that like, and I tend to do that, right? And I'm a victim of that. Like I'll tend to just go off on my rants, as you folks can see. Like I'll just go off on a rant. Like, yeah, I was able to compromise it, use crack map exec. I used, I compromised the hash with, responder, and I just passed that around, and I was able to get to Bob's account. And when I, I got in there, I invoked PowerShell script, and I was able to download the zip file. When I uploaded that to, I don't know, Bloodhound, they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What is all this stuff that you're talking about? Then it's like, okay, let me take a step back and say, okay, when I was able to get on Bob's machine, what I was able to do is do XYZ. And then I was able to download a zip file containing all this information that I can upload into an application to see which groups and users and whatever he's a part of, so I can get the shortest path to a domain admin account. This is how I enumerated Bob's account. And this is how I was able to compromise Bob's account, whatever. And so having that soft skill is definitely a benefit. And we all love the technical stuff. We all like the hacking, getting into that stuff. But I think that's a big missing piece of the puzzle. And sometimes, I struggle with it myself, and I tend to go on these rants. And so it's always good to stay in your own, stay in that lane that, okay, we're talking to Joe, the non-technical guy, that, even if he's somewhat technical, just to describe it as he's not technical. It's maybe because you have the CFO in that office that's gonna be writing you that check once you debrief this assessment. So
Yeah, or the client that's just not nice. You know, sometimes you go in and they question everything you say and do, and you have to be able to just, take it, and it not, either,
take
remove
offense.
all the severities from it or take offense, right? It's not, got to be able to do that. And it's not super common, but I definitely gone through it, how to defend myself. You got to pick the hills you battle on. You learn that from doing it. That's it. I mean, that's what soft skills are. So I just think that, that's something that's very important. The layman's terms, absolutely. And to me, if I have a layman read out, that's great. Right? I don't have to worry about it. It's the ones where I have, the guy who built this for the past 20 years, right? What do you mean? It's an unrestricted file upload. You know what I mean? It says here it's only supposed to accept CSVs. It's like, yeah, but that's not actually what it only accepts. That's like the, those type of things. So yeah, I do have a request for our first guest. I think we should have 0 Day James on here.
Who?
0 Day James.
Yeah. Yeah. 0 Day James, we should have him on. We have
He's
to
at an
get
MSP, I think. So
Yeah, so he'll be good because he came from electrician to working as a, I guess, I don't know, field technician. He's working at MSP. I don't even know what he's doing, but he's doing some fun stuff over there. He's learning a lot. So yeah, having James on would be super cool. We'll hit him up in a chat. We'll get him, and then we'll organize that. So yeah, I think that should be wrapping this stuff up. Any last words?
yeah,
I'm good.
I got one last thing I want to say. The first time I talked to you, you did the exact thing I'm talking about. You said, "Oh, you think you know what you're talking about? Tell me about this." That's something you like to do, and I think that's a great training, for junior. It's not hazing, it's not too mean, right? But it's kind of showing, okay, are you prepared? And that's it. I just wanted to point that out because I do remember that. I do see that. And I do know you like to do that. So I'm happy I
Yeah,
don't do
and I think I
offensive
like to do
engagement
that.
for you.
I like to do that more when I was on the system. I don't do that much on the pen testing stuff, maybe because there's a lot of people that know a lot more than me, so I can't
Hmm.
really run circles. But where I can run circles, I definitely like to test how far along or how far around that lap you can get before you hit the finish line without getting tripped up. So yeah, because I know a lot about a lot, and I just don't convey it. I don't divulge it, at least on camera, right? I
Just
just like
100
to,
certs, but yeah, I get it.
yeah, I just like to do my, my own thing, and I just like to showcase what I showcase, right? But yeah, that's a good one. Thanks for the shot. Thanks for the call
Well,
out. You,
I noticed because I was like, I'm not gonna lie, like I don't get like fine. I don't know. You know what I mean? Again,
yeah,
that's soft skills, being able to say I don't know. So
yeah,
yeah, let's call it there.
cool deal. So if anyone has any questions for John or myself, you can find John a lot of places.
Just GainSec, you'll find me. Otherwise, you can just comment on here,
GainSec on
and I'll alert the
Instagram,
channel.
Twitter, whatever. And you guys know where to find me. So if you have any questions about this, something that we said, throw it in the comments below. And until next time, have an awesome day.